Uh, I was just dreaming. I was having a dream when all of a sudden I woke up because I was being pulled through the wall. And I remember that part, right? And I'm like,
Like through the wall was still solid, but you were going through
well, it was
it.
like there was a hole, there,
Okay.
and I'm,
Yeah.
and I mean, it happened so fast that I'm like, whoa, instant happened. I'm like, I know what's happening. I remember this. I know this feeling.
The Codega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with the Codega and sharing one of yours.
Welcome back, Curious Minds, to another chapter of Codega's Codex of Curiosities. This is the show where we unravel the riddles of the unseen, the unexplained, and unbelievably real. And today, I'm going to be diving straight into the galactic deep end with someone who's been navigating the UFO phenomena for longer than most of us have been staring at the stars. Author, researcher, and veteran MUFON field investigator Preston Dennett. Now, since the 80s, Preston has cataloged hundreds, yeah, you got that right, hundreds of real life encounters with UFOs, USOs, alien abductions, out of body experiences, and so much more. His books read like interdimensional case files, from floating beds, flying saucers, to contact from beings of light. And it started with people close to him having unexplainable experiences. He didn't just believe, he investigated. Now, he's written for Fate, Paranormal Magazine, and been featured on Coast to Coast AM, the History Channel, and Ancient Aliens. But today, he is with us to go deeper into what it all means. Are aliens just tourists with cloaking devices? Are underwater bases hiding in plain sight? Is disclosure trickling out, or is it just more of smoke and mirrors, which is something I'm kind of leaning towards? Now, I want you guys to strap in. This isn't, of course, your average lights in the sky conversation. This is Codega's Codex. And tonight, we're going to open a new file with Preston Dennett. Eyes on the skies, truth below the surface. Okay, and before we get to that, everyone, I want to say thank you once again for tuning in. The show is a success because of all of you. And I want to say thank you. If these are topics you guys enjoy, make sure you guys comment down below. Say, I love this topic. I want more of this. Or if there's another topic you guys are interested in that I haven't covered, please, by all means, comment down below. Say topic, do the subject line topic, and then give me some ideas so I can, seek out and find some more people just like Preston who are wealth of knowledge. So, and with that, let's not waste any more time. Let's bring Preston to the stage. Preston, welcome to Codega's Codex of Curiosities.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. A friend of mine, Matt Emch, recommended. He's like, you got to talk to Preston, and I checked you out, and I was like, okay, why have I not seen any of your work yet? Which is strange because I've seen a lot. But and speaking of a lot, you have a ton of books. You've appeared on many shows, many programs. You are the epitome of research for the UFO phenomena and just about anything else. If please give us a little bit of an introduction about yourself and maybe where people can find you and your books.
Yeah, thanks. It's funny. I'd never in a million years thought this would be something I was doing. Because growing up, I was very skeptical, really, of anything UFOs, paranormal, life after death, ghosts, all of it. Just didn't believe it. I was very much into science, actually. Of course, that all changed. And luckily, I was pretty young. I was, let's see, 21 years old, 1986, when everything changed for me. It was a big adjustment because there I'm sitting in front of the TV with my family. There's 6 kids in my family. I'm number 5, so we're a pretty big family. And the news comes on, and there's this news report about a UFO sighting. And I'd seen UFOs on TV a couple of times, almost never. But this one impressed me because it was either Dan Rather or Tom Brokaw, one of those main news guys, talking about this pilot over Alaska who had seen a UFO on November, I'll never forget it, November 17, 1986. Captain Kenju Torochi, Japanese commercial airliner. It's a real famous case. But they just kind of joked about it, honestly. And like, did you see a UFO? Have you ever? No. Haha. Have you? No. And kind of moved on. But they did show a picture of this guy, the captain. I thought, oh my God, this captain is nuts. He thinks he saw a UFO. He's crazy. He's going to lose his job. He must have seen a reflection off the ice cap. And I was making up ridiculous explanations in my mind without having any evidence. But then I remembered when years early, I was probably 13. My brother Mark, he's number 2, several years older than me. He must have been around 18 or so. Came running into the house, super excited. Said he had just seen a UFO. And all I really remember him saying was that it was at treetop level, and it was silent, and it wasn't anything that he could identify. I'm like, go away. You didn't see anything. UFOs aren't real. The stars are too far away. Blah, blah, blah. And didn't pay any attention to it after that. But now I went back to him. I'm like, Mark, after hearing this pilot, I'm like, what did you see? And he kind of gave me this look like, are you really willing to listen now? I'm like, yeah, tell me. And he described an amazing sighting. I mean, it was really impressive. He saw a classic flying saucer, little lights around it, dome on top. He was up on a hill, so he was kind of looking at it right at eye level. And couldn't have been more than 100 feet away, he said. I'm like, you're kidding me. He's like, no, we chased this thing down Reseda Boulevard. This is in Southern California, probably 1979, thereabouts, 78. And he says, my friends were with me, Phil and Greg. You know them? I'm like, yeah, I know them pretty well. They were his friends. They'd come over. It's like, you got to talk to them. They'll confirm everything I'm saying. And I did. And of course they did, and had even more detail. So that opened the door for me. And boy, did I get a shock when I found out that my sister-in-law, or soon-to-be, had seen UFOs. And later, a little bit later, she told me she actually had an encounter with Greys right in front of near her home in Van Nuys. And let's see, I had a couple of friends who had very close sightings. One was a flight instructor, a scuba diver, a good witness. She had a witness with her as well. All these people that I was talking to had other witnesses to support their story.
To corroborate it. Now, the scuba diver, was it an underwater one, or was that, no, that was above, like a UFO?
Yeah, she was at her home, not far away from where I lived, and saw an egg-shaped object. They were actually drawn outside by this low buzzing noise. And there was this thing kind of just floating over their house. And clearly not a plane. I mean, it was an egg.
Yeah, exactly.
And I brought it up at work. I worked in an office that had a lot of people there, 20 or 30. And the lady whose desk was right next to mine, she's like, oh, my whole family saw a UFO. I'm like, come on, you're kidding me. She's like, no, it was this little light in the sky and it was darting around. I'm like, that's probably a helicopter. She says, Preston, no. This thing went from one side of the sky to the other, stopped, go up, down, right angles. And she says, you should talk to my daughter. She says aliens came into her room. I'm like, what? I knew her daughter because she would come and pick her up and we'd chat. And she started talking. She was taken on board, had a full-on onboard experience with gray ETs. So, and Dorothy walks in. You would love Dorothy. She's very outgoing, very funny and smart, and just a joy to be around. And she's like, oh, UFOs? One followed me home from the library when I was a kid. I'm looking at her like, Dorothy, what the hell are you talking about? She's like, no, for real. My mom, my best friend were there. It takes us 5 minutes to get home from the library. Weirdly, it took us an hour and 10 minutes. I'm like, Dorothy, you had missing time. 'Cause by then I'm picking up books on this subject. So yeah, it hit home for me. It was not good news as far as I was concerned because I had to reevaluate everything. It was upsetting. I mean, there was a government cover-up. This wasn't being taught in schools. People were being taken on board, and I'm like, I was out of my mind with this. So it was a difficult. I joined MUFON actually.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of like one of those like the darkest night kind of an experience where you have to reevaluate everything and your take on everything. Once you start taking this information, you come to a point where you're like, everything I believed is now going to change. Like, don't get me wrong. I still know that if I drive down the street and I'm going to go to McDonald's, I'm going to find a McDonald's. But there's so much more of your life. You're like, because there's so much more. There's so much more out there that we're not being told. So I find that fascinating. So it was 86. It was this airline pilot, and you doubted it, but then all of a sudden, more and more. Do you find it peculiar that you kind of attracted all that attention? Like you might have started the conversations, but all of a sudden, it just seems like people were just approaching you, telling you all about this. Like it's almost like you were an epicenter for a collection.
100%. Yeah, I started to look at people a different way. Like, I wonder if this person's had an encounter. And, I really did. And like you said, I reevaluated everything. I kind of became even more skeptical because I was lied to for years. But, news spreads fast. And, I started collecting these encounters, and it turned out, I would say almost 20 to 30% of the people I knew, we all know what, 40 or 50 people, reasonably.
Yeah.
Started coming to me with stories. I started to become better at researching and just listen, let them spill the beans, ask them if they had any unexplained experience. So very quickly, I started hearing about ghosts and out-of-body experiences and near-death experiences and all kinds of stuff. I joined MUFON and became a field investigator in early 1988. Which was a blast. That was so much fun because I'm getting firsthand cases and buying every book I could find. I wanted to see them so bad. I wanted to see these UFOs myself.
That is a question, is like, have you had your own experience?
I did. Because,
okay.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it took a while to get there.
It did. Yeah, it took 5 years or so.
Okay.
Because I was just kind of trying to keep my head above water for a year there. Because, like I said, a big adjustment. But I bought all these books. I'm like, okay, this is real. This has actually been taken seriously. There's a cover-up. This is no joke. This is absolutely a serious subject. And I asked everyone. I get lots of side eyes and ridicule and some snickering. And some of these same people would come back to me and, I saw this stuff. So I started to become sort of a clearinghouse for people, friends of friends.
Fair enough.
And, people started coming to me, and I'd hear their stories, and I'm like, well, yeah, I saw it last night. I'm like, I'm coming over, because I learned that if sometimes, if a UFO shows up, it's much more likely to show up again over the next couple of days. They kind of come in clusters or waves. So I'd go over to their house. I'm like, one lady, honest to God, asked them, can I sleep in your backyard? Would you mind if I slept in your backyard? No, go ahead. I did. Didn't see anything. But I was looking at the sky in a whole new way. I was really keeping my eyes out. And I started to see stuff that I would call unexplained lights. There was a huge wave of sightings going on by weird coincidence or synchronicity where I grew up in Topanga Canyon. This was in 1992, thereabout. And I was investigating all these cases. I put up flyers. I called the police, gave them my number. They were referring callers to me. I was cold calling people in the phone book who lived in this area, going door to door. I was serious about this. And I remember the first one that really, what is that? I'm driving through Topanga Canyon. This is just west of LA. It's along the Southern California coast. And I saw this enormous bright light in the sky. And I thought, wow, look at that. Now, I'd been fooled before by a plane coming directly towards you. Sometimes you can't see the wing lights, and then it turns, and you're like, well, plane. So I'm looking at it, and I'm driving. Didn't pull over, I should have, because I'm looking at this thing. I'm like, God, that looks weird. It's I would say 10 times brighter than a star. This was bright. This was big. The darn thing winks out. It's gone. There's nothing there. I'm like, hey, now that was cool, right? But it's an anomalous light. And it could have been something. So I was like, darn, I really I need more. Give me something better. And so I got my payoff. I sure did. One evening, I'm pretty sure it was July 21st. Now, it was right after the 4th of July. I know that because 1992, I was at my brother's house in Woodland Hills. Same one who'd seen a UFO.
Okay.
And we're talking.
That one that was chasing the UFO, right?
What?
The one that was at the treetop level. Okay.
What?
Yes.
Everyone else in my family thought I was crazy, except for my sisters. They were like, "Oh, you're good," but no. My other brothers, my dad, my mom, unfortunately, had passed on. But at any rate, I'm at my brother's house, and it's getting late. It's a Sunday evening. I remember that, and I had to go to work because I'm working full time. And it was approaching midnight, so I left the house. I'm driving my little tiny Daihatsu, little tiny Japanese car, coming around this very tight hairpin corner, which is also really steep. It's called Golondrina Drive. I'll never forget this. Right off of Canoga Avenue. And coming around this corner, it might be 3 to 5 miles per hour, and I see movement out of the top right of my eye, and I'm looking up. My first thought is firecracker, because it's after the 4th of July, and it's a round white light. And I'm like, gosh, that's not a firecracker. It's lasting too long. And this thing was coming towards me in that kind of arc. I'm thinking, is that a bird? You go through what J. Allen Hynek calls theory escalation.
Okay.
Right? You don't jump to UFO. Almost never do you.
Of course not.
Because I've had this happen. Each time I'm like, what is that? And this darn thing, I'll never forget this, comes right down, parks itself right over my windshield, right over the hood of my car, a foot away. Not 2 feet, about as close as I am to my computer here. And
wow.
It's an orb, a little white orb about the size of, it was smaller than a tennis ball, but not much. Hard edges, soft white, and kind of hovering. It was wavering just a little bit. It wasn't stock still, but it's right in front of my darn face. I'm like, damn, what the heck? And of course, you go like this because you're thinking. I knew it wasn't a reflection, but
yeah. But you got to try to like to cancel that all out. You're like, I need to prove that it's not a reflection, so I'm looking around it. Yes.
Yeah. And this darn thing, clearly intelligently controlled, went to all the way to the left, stopped at the edge of my windshield, went all the way to the right, stopped at the edge of the windshield, went all the way back to the left again, stopped, came right back in front of my face. And now I'm like, okay, dude, what is going on? I'm stopped. I'm gripping the steering wheel, and this thing scoots forward, dips down, nearly brushes the street, goes straight up. And the last thing I remember is watching this thing go straight up into the zenith through the trees. And here's where it gets weird. And this took me a while to unpack. I forgot it. I completely forgot it. I didn't remember it at all. Yeah. And having talked to people who are like, oh, I had a UFO land on the street in front of me, and none of us remembered it. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? She's like, no, it came back after we got home. And I've heard this 100 times. And I never fully understood it. But now I kind of do. And it just popped back into my head a few months later. I'm like, oh my God. I remember this. Because I've had sightings since then, better ones even. And you always rush and you tell people. And you write it down. You go through this whole process.
Exactly. You write it down. Yeah.
And I didn't do that. So
I have a question about that. Like, what time of day was this? Was it during the day or evening or
yeah,
when?
this was very close to midnight.
Okay. So, yeah, because I was thinking maybe it could be during the day or something like that. But no, this was clear as day. And there was like this whitish orb, or did it have any kind of hue to it other than like a white?
White, yellow, maybe.
Okay, yeah.
Really, I'm gonna stick with white, but not like glaringly bright or anything. And Canoga Avenue is a busy street during the day, but at midnight, not so much. Golondrina, nobody's on that street after midnight because it's a tiny little, barely 2 lanes, honestly. Uh, and what's
Was
weird is
was there any lost time with that?
that's the thing. I would always tell people, well, here's my sighting. And one guy says, well, what did you do next? I'm like, I don't remember going home. I don't remember waking up the next morning thinking, I am fairly certain there was missing time. I I would have turned around. I mean, this is an amazing thing, and I told nobody. But it took me a year or two to realize, oh my God, I think I had missing time with this. And that was the first of what turned out to be probably a dozen over the years, all the way culminating to a full, just like, let's see, 3 years ago, about 3 years ago exactly, full on, fully conscious, taken on board, whole deal experience.
Really?
Come,
Let's unpack that. Let's go into that. That sounds very interesting.
yeah, I know it's funny because people are like, well, you're investigating this stuff. You've probably just wished for it. Well, I did. I did wish for it. Or imagined it. I'm like, I don't know. Because what I found is if you investigate these things, they investigate you. I was hanging out with contactees. I was out there in the field. I was literally telepathically calling out to them, doing CE5s. So over the years, I had a number of sightings, and they were kind of circling around me. Once I had a full-on telepathic communication.
Okay.
And then one time, I woke up, could have sworn there was someone on my bed. A cat is what it felt like. I don't have a cat. And I looked at the side of my bed, and I saw some rail thin figure, and it zipped out of my room. My heart beat so fast. Didn't get up, didn't do anything, just rolled over and went back to bed. So I'm just giving you
actually let's focus on that. I have a question about that. Was it that you found yourself so extremely tired that you just couldn't get out of bed to check on that, or what inspired you just to fall back asleep?
I can't tell you because I don't know. Other than this is something I heard from other people. Oh yeah, there was a gray in my room, and I just turned and went back to bed. I'm like, well, wouldn't you check the house? Like, I don't know, just went back to bed. So I think there's perhaps, I don't know if it's me, the human brain kind of just dismissing it. I don't think so, because my heart was beating.
I have an experience where I had something beside my bed. It was like when people say light being, this was a light being, small child size, maybe like 4 years old, 3 years old, like that's the height,
Right.
but very skinny and immensely bright, like this yellowish, greenish, bluish light, and I could see it, and I'd woken up. I could not stay awake. I just went right back to sleep. I was trying to like stay awake, but I
have had that experience actually another time.
Okay.
But it was
okay.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack here, but I'll just jump to the really my best and favorite because
let's hear this.
It's crazy that this happened. And I found out, of course, this isn't my family. My nephews both have had sightings. My sister-in-law saw grays. My other sister-in-law, my brother's wife, who saw the UFO, saw little blue beings. My younger sister had 2 or 3 sightings, one involving missing time. So this is in my family, as it is in many other, quote, contactees. So I'm just going to preface that saying, this is not coming completely out of the blue. There was a reason I was so obsessed with this subject. Because, there were a few weird incidents in childhood as well. Very minor, but at any rate, my birthday, this is significant because there's this birthday thing going on with many encounters I found. And my birthday, May 6th, 2022, I was just dreaming. I was having a dream when all of a sudden I woke up because I was being pulled through the wall. And I remember that part, right? And I'm
like through the wall was still solid, but you were going through
well,
it.
it was like there was a hole,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
And it happened so fast that I'm like, whoa, instant happened. I'm like, I know what's happening. I remember this. I know this feeling. And it was like being pulled up this energy beam. It's hard to describe it. It's electric, mild, but, and not unpleasant, but, a little uncomfortable. I think for someone who never felt it, it would be like, oh my God. But I remembered this feeling. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm being taken. I'm being taken. This is fantastic. Hope I never have to come back. This is what's running through my mind, weirdly. But, I have no fear of this stuff. I've done my research. I know they're not here to hurt us. This is my assessment. And we can talk about that. But
Definitely like to unpack that a little bit. But
yeah,
yes.
I had no fear of this whatsoever. And I'm hurtling through space. I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And it went on for, not 10 seconds or 20, but 30 seconds, which is a long time when you're in a state like this. And I'm seeing the stars going by. I'm like, okay, I am out in space. Didn't see anything until suddenly I'm lying on a table. And there's a round room, and it's big. It's 40, 50 feet across, and there's people around me. Little short ones who I didn't really look at because I'm looking at this lady who's kind of bending over and looking at me with this concerned expression. And she's not fully human. She's what I would call a hybrid. Because she looked human but had a tiny little nose, a slit for a mouth, big, beautiful blue eyes that slightly wrapped around and were kind of going up. Very tightly curled white blonde hair. Flawless skin, is wearing a jumpsuit with a collar right up to her neck that's pure white. I mean, snow white and shiny. I'm like, look at her. Look at you. I'm like, wow. And I'm sitting up, right? And she put me back down. She's like, no. Wait a second. We need to check if you're all right mentally, right? I'm like, I'm fine. And tried to sit up again. I'm like, no. We need to make sure you're all right. I'm like, listen, I'm fine. I'm okay. And I'm like, oh, okay, get up. It took me like 3 asks to like just let me off this darn table. And I stood up and I looked around like boom, boom, boom to take it all in. Yeah, big gray room with windows all the way around. Couple of gray looking dudes, really alien looking dudes over in the corner who looked like they were kind of guards. Group of about 10 to 12 people, younger than me, in their 20s maybe, standing in a row, in a daze, hypnotized, in 2 rows actually. There's a black guy, there's a couple of Asians, different races. And I'm looking at them like, well, they're kind of almost asleep. Their eyes were open. And I saw some people over by the windows, and I turn and I look, and there's this lady who is a tall gray. She was 7 feet tall, if not taller. And I rushed up to her because she was so amazing looking. She was full on gray. Huge wraparound eyes, which were not black. They were kind of bluish green. And she had this just beautiful. She was like the epitome of elegance and grace and wisdom and love and knowledge. I mean, this lady was amazing, wearing a kind of smock. And I could just feel this energy coming off of her that was like really impressive. And so I run up. I didn't run. I walked as fast as I could. She was 5 feet away from me. And I'm looking up at her, and she tilts her head slightly forward and says, so, is this what you thought it would be like? And I said, no, it's much better. Because it was. I mean, I was in a place where You don't have, you could feel the goodness, right? You could feel the wisdom. You could feel like no one's going to lie here. No one's going to stab you in the back. You don't need much. It was a different place. Uh, and I'm like, can I explore? Can I walk around? And she said, sure, go ahead. And I went to the far side of the room where nobody was and looked down, and you can see the earth far down below there. It is like, slightly curved. So it's not like a little globe way the heck out there. We're above it. I'm going to try and figure out how high we were by.
Okay, by kind of gauging it and trying to figure out like the height wise and the curvature to see. Yeah.
Because it's certainly not like a jet or anything. This was more like a space station type thing. Because you can obviously see the Earth's a globe. So, flat earthers. No, don't think
yeah,
so.
I was about to say, so yes, right now we have the flat earthers. I'm neither. I'm actually will say I'm in neither camp. I don't know because I haven't seen it, so I cannot say one way or the other. So, but you have seen what you've seen. Okay, so you're stationed above the earth.
Yep. And so I walk back, and I'm looking at these 2 rows of people, who are quite a bit younger than me. And I walk up to one. I'm like, "Hey, what's your name?" Nothing. No response. I'm looking at the others. I'm like, "These people are out of it. That's too bad." And then I saw this, I'm guessing Korean girl. I worked with a Korean girl. She looked Korean to me. And she's having a ball. She's smiling. She's looking out the window. So I walk over to her. There's a little railing. And these windows are like that, looking down, kind of like a cruise ship. And I'm looking down, and there's the earth. And I'm like, God, I was losing my mind. This was amazing. And I turned to her, and that's when this darn ship drops to the ground in 1 second. And she screams out, "Woo!" And I'm just holding on to this little railing because I can't believe it. We're now 5 feet above the ground. And the ship rocks like boom, boom, boom. I'm like, oh, I can feel that. This is crazy. Because you didn't feel the acceleration or deceleration. But I could feel it rocking a little bit. And then boom, back up. Instantaneous. 1 second. And I'm being generous there. And I'm like, oh my God. And so I turned around and walked back, and the tall gray hands me a little tumbler, a glass, thick glass tumbler. Yay high, 6 inches, pretty small. And it's filled 1/3 of the way with this almost glowing green liquid. Neon looking, not glowing, but it was a bright green liquid. And I'm a sniffer. I always sniff my, so I'm like, I can't smell it. And she's like, go ahead, drink it. And I take a sip. I'm like, okay. Because I trusted her. And I took a sip, and it was thick. It was very thick, like cough syrup, kind of. And I could taste it. It was kind of lime kiwi, maybe, very subtle. And she took it back. I was mad. I'm like, hey, I'd like another sip if you don't mind, because I want to memorize this. I realize what's happening to me here. I was ready to stay. I would have stayed. And she looked at me like I was crazy. Like, you want another sip? I'm like, yeah, I really do, if that's okay. Like, okay, go ahead. And I took another sip, and bam, blacked out. Woke up in bed. I'm like, holy. I couldn't, just that fast. I jumped up, I wrote it down. And so 5 minutes on board a craft. And yeah, I was physically examined. It didn't scare me. Yeah, there were grays. I thought they looked cool. I thought it was unbelievably, wonderfully benevolent fun. I loved it.
Okay, I've got some questions because there's 3 camps in all of this, right? They're benevolent. There is like this neutral camp, we don't know, and then there's the other camp, whereas these are evil beings who are abducting us against our will.
Right.
And I'm assuming you are in the benevolent camp. Is that where you sit completely?
I honestly wouldn't put it quite that way.
Okay, yep.
I would say that for my experience was benevolent. Mine was. But because when I got involved in this field, I was thoroughly encamped into this is not good news for humanity. Because people are being taken against their will. This is what the media is reporting. Horrific experience by bug-eyed, emotionless grays. I'm like, I need to figure out what's going on here because I'm not sure I trust some of these people. It became clear to me that the media was fear-based and pushing a fear narrative because fear sells. So I started interviewing people, and I started to get a completely different picture. What I found was a lot of people do have fear. They're taken on board. Today I've interviewed I've talked to 1,000 people, easy, but formally interviewed 200-300, upwards of that even. And particularly, I love talking to people who are taken on board because that's where the meat is, right? But
exactly, it's one thing to have like these I've seen a UFO kind of, and I'll document that down, but it's the next level up, of actually being a part of an abduction.
Yeah, and if you saw a light in the sky, I'm like, please, can I interview you? I was this into it, but I started talking to these people, like this lady at work. Her daughter. She woke up, there were little grays around her bed. They said, you need to come with us. And she said, no, are you crazy? Get away from me. And she's screaming. She says, Preston, they were scary to look at. Very scary. They were grays. She said, they had leathery skin, and I didn't even want to look at them. And next thing she knows, she's lying on this table, and she's fighting them all the way. And they're like, we need to, cut your arm here. She's like, no, don't do that. And they did. And then said, well, we need to do an operation on your brain. And she lost her mind. And that's all she remembered. Woke up in bed, and there was a cut on her arm. She showed it to me. They came back 4 times, and they started talking to her. And they told her, like, this is going to happen at your work. You're going to get a raise. Your boyfriend, he's in love with you. And started giving her personal information about, her people at church where she went. She's like, Preston, I don't think that they're evil at all. I think they were just very interested in my life. Well, that's certainly interesting. That was the first case, right? And so I started interviewing people, and this is what I started to get. There's a very set pattern to an onboard experience. People are taken on board and physically examined. And this is the very worst I hear. People get really traumatized and frightened and that's totally understandable. Gray shows up in your bedroom, and they will almost always say, don't be afraid. Have no fear. No harm will come to you. We're not here to hurt you. Some variation of that, which is significant because, that's technically not what a kidnapper will tell you.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. That's where I have like this kind of like, when someone's refusing to go, but they still take you, that's the point where I'm like, I don't know if that is a benevolent kind of species. And I'm not saying, and I want to be clear. So I believe that there's more than like, there's always a balance out there. I believe that there is good and evil, and there is neutral as well. And I believe, I believe that there's both sides out there that are out there. My personal belief.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a mixed bag for people, especially in the beginning, because this is what I was hearing. They'd be taken on board, physically examined, and some people, that's all they remember. They have missing time, that's it. But people who don't completely panic and freak out often will get messages about their personal life or the world in general. And it's almost always the same darn thing. They will take you down to the engine room and say, this is how we power our craft. And we use the electromagnetic field lines. We harness, Earth's gravity. We use electromagnetics. It's always something along those lines, almost every single time.
Can I ask you a question? Is there any type of plasma as well talked about on this?
Not so much, no.
Okay.
No, there's.
I'm just curious. I'm curious because some people have talked about like portals opening up and like this plasma-looking thing coming out and then forming into a UFO.
Well, Yeah, that's more of a from an outside perspective. Uh,
Okay. Yeah.
it'll come down. It's a fiery thing, and then boom, the plasma. These things come in hot, and they form
Okay.
plasma around them, and it can look like a fireball or a house on fire burning in the air. I've heard that same exact description. It looks like a house on fire moving through the air. Uh,
Wow. Okay.
and yeah, outside that sort of thing can happen. But then they'll take you up to the what we would call the control room. The helm, and there's like this. We fly these craft psychically. Would you like to sit in the chair? I've got case after case of this. Well, they'll put you down in the chair and let you fly the craft, or more often, kind of just you get to stand there and like this is how we do it. Then they'll give you messages, and they're almost every single time this same message, which is warnings against nuclear proliferation, use of nuclear material, bombs, this sort of thing. War and aggression. We're on the wrong path. You guys need to stop being so divisive and filled with hatred. Then they'll say pollution, destruction of the environment. You're polluting your waters. All this message. Raising your psychic abilities. That's another message. Another is like, we're not that different from you. We share a common heritage. So that's basically the message people will get. Or like, you're going to meet this person. You should probably move to that area. It's better for you. You're going to, here's the house you're going to be living in. Stuff like this, comes up again and again. And that's basically, in a nutshell, the onboard experience. And having interviewed several hundred people, I'm going to say 80 to 90% of people describe that. 80 to 90% say, no, I don't think they're evil. Was I scared? Yes. As a kid, did I have nightmares? Oh, yeah. Insomnia, nightmares, and PTSD in the beginning. And if people, because sometimes people will shut down at that point. And they're like, this is evil. I don't want them. They keep coming in my room. I didn't ask for this. Wish they just go away. And I have a number of people who've said that. But ultimately, most people who are taken on board are going to be taken on board again. And they're often healed. I ended up writing a whole book about healings as a result of an encounter. And I can tell you pretty much every single major researcher out there has multiple cases. Every one of them, even the ones who hate these ETs and think they're evil, say, well, yeah, they cured this person of cancer, this of pneumonia, this of heart disease. John Mack, Bud Hopkins, David Jacobs, Edith Fiore, Barbara Lamb, Yvonne Smith, they all have healing cases. This is significant, because why would they heal you? And it's not just people who are they're quote using, because they're healing people who are quite elderly or very young. So
Now, can I ask you a little bit about the operations? Do you have many people who have told you about the operations they've undergone, and maybe like cranial or brain surgeries? What were those like? Like what were they doing, or what were they replacing or fixing?
well, I can quote a lot from the literature and a few from my own cases, but often it's they're upholding our genetics is what it appears that they're doing. They're saying, oh, well, you've got a problem here. One guy I did interview, they said, we need to do an operation on your brain. And he's like, why is that? And they said, well, you have a tumor in there. He says, I don't have any symptoms of that. They said, you will, and we need to take care of it before it manifests. So that's one of them. One guy, he had a condition, gosh, it's got some weird name, where a malformation of the blood vessels in the brain. I forget what the name is. Hopefully it'll come to me. But at any rate, it's a serious condition that causes paralysis and blindness and loss of speech. And he suddenly recovered for no darn reason that they could think of. And the doctors ordered exploratory brain surgery because they couldn't understand it. Opened his brain up, and his blood vessels were normal. Later, under hypnosis, he recalled that he was taken on board. They took off the top of his skull, used all these instruments to, cure the malformation of the blood vessels, and put it back and sewed it up without even a scar. they can do this, open you up. And so, yeah, I mean, all kinds. One lady, I interviewed her, Lycia Davidson, unoperable cancer. They expected her to die. And she says the ETs pulled her on board and they gave her an operation, and it was excruciating. She said it was very painful. And this is what I've heard from other people who've had advanced full body cancer. When it's in your bones and pancreas, and they give you a long operation involving injections and tools and lights, and it's a big deal. And Lycia's like, well, it was fine because I'd already been through worse with the doctors here on Earth, and came back healed. And I just want to add this in because some people are like, oh, they were kidnapping me against my will. Some people absolutely still feel this way. To this day, there's a sense of violation. But a good number at some point, like, you know what? I actually do remember giving permission.
I think that's important, is the permission part. Yes.
Yeah. And this is a very controversial aspect because, when it starts happening to your kids, people, they're like, it's the loss of control. And when their kids are getting bothered, people don't like it, understandably. But it's become very clear to me that the ETs do have an agenda, right? They are here for a reason. And it is basically to teach. They will teach you about how they power their ships, how they fly their ships. I can't tell you how many people have an encounter and they're like, I am so into astrophysics now. I'm so into mathematics. I'm now doing art. I'm writing poetry. I'm following my dream of being a musician.
Do you feel that maybe teaching is a secondary to what because like if you're saying they're studying our genetics, is that possibly their primary is genetics, and then it's like, okay, we're going to gift you this in return almost?
I've had at least 3 people say that exact same thing, because they start having crazy psychic experiences, healing abilities, astral projection. That happened to me, by the way. I started having major astral projection experiences. Got really good at, still have that, but premonitions, precognition, mediumship, remote viewing. I mentioned astral projection, channeling. I mean, you name it. It's across the board. And I've had at least 3 people tell me the ETs told them, this is our gift to you for having worked with us. Variations of the same phrase, but sometimes the exact same phrase. So there is a primary, I don't know if it's primary mission. One of their goals is absolutely the collection of genetic material. They are absolutely creating hybrid babies. 100% I know this because I've had so many cases of this. But collecting genetics of plants and animals too.
Okay. So with the hybrids, what is the purpose of the hybrids, in your opinion?
I'm not just purely speculating here like a lot of people are, right? David Jacobs like,
you have done a fair bit of research and collected a lot of data. So, coming from you, I've heard a lot of people, and I would definitely like to hear what you have to say on it.
My point is that this is not something I necessarily believe, just because out of faith. This is what people have been told, that the genetics of the Greys have been damaged to some degree through space travel, or gamma radiation, or previous genetic manipulation, that they are trying to reinvigorate their own DNA because they have some trouble reproducing. This comes up over and over again. But they're also upholding our own genetics, which are severely damaged through, the magnetic fields surrounding our planet are not doing really well right now. Don't believe me? Look it up.
You're talking the Van Allen radiation belt?
No, the Earth's magnetic field.
Okay.
Which is, not at full power right now. So we're receiving doses of gamma radiation. And that's beside pollution. That's, all the stuff that's damaging our DNA. This is what Contact has been told. We're upholding your genetics. Some people call it a health upgrade. They're not necessarily sick, but they come back and they're a little bit stronger. I've talked to a lot of these people, and they're like, I go to the doctor, and I'm like 70 years old. He's like, you have the lungs of a 17-year-old. They enjoy excellent health often. This is not always the case. Some people have gynecological problems, and it's not unusual for someone to have nausea and headaches and light sensitivity following an encounter. But I would say definitely collecting genetics is a major goal. Teaching people, guiding them in their own life path, like what do you want to do? But warning messages about that we're on the wrong
Well,
path.
yeah, like with you saying with this, like trying to heal these people, and because if you look in this day and age, as a culture and as a society, as a civilization, we should be advancing, we should be getting healthier, we should be getting stronger. But in fact, like the amount of chronic illness has been skyrocketing. The amount of people with chronic diseases, and children with chronic diseases has been skyrocketing. And we are being poisoned. We are being poisoned by medical interventions. We are being poisoned by the air, by pollution, by our food. It's so many things.
Which
So
I wonder
maybe,
if it's somewhat deliberate on the parts of nefarious
yes,
forces on our planet. I'll put it that way.
I believe so. I personally believe so. I believe some of the stuff is deliberate. I think there are many people within the industry who don't know it's deliberate. They think it's for our benefit because that's what they're being told. But the true outcome of it all, I think, is to reduce the population. It's quite blatant. That there's people coming up and literally saying that, if we do things right, we can reduce the population by, 10, 15%.
Exactly. And I had a kind of a leg up learning about the cover up and how this wasn't for our best interests. But if you look into the actions of our quote governments, secret government would probably be a better word. The power elite, intelligence agencies, the highest levels of the military do not treat humanity well, and have irradiated soldiers and have basically sterilized, disenfranchised segments of our population. I don't want to get in. I mean, we can do a whole
Yeah.
show on
Oh,
the,
I agree. I
but
agree wholeheartedly with you. Like this is happening. Like we are test subjects. We are guinea pigs for many things, and yeah, it's
and it's connected to this subject because there is a cover up. It's demonstrable. It's not speculation, and it's brutal. But ETs, I think, are trying to counteract that to the degree where they'll intervene to and give advice, but they're not going to come down and solve our problems. Because people have asked them over and over, please, come down. And we cannot do that. You made your mess. You have to fix it. But here's a case I just want to quote because this one was like an aha moment for me. This guy, Jim Law in Gainesville, Florida, had a hernia. And he's a contactee, right? So he's scheduled for hernia surgery. It's kind of a big deal. It was a bad one. And these little grays show up. He's not particularly happy with them, but kind of learned to overcome the fear because he's had a lot of encounters. He's like, "Oh, you guys again. If you're going to take me, why don't you just heal my hernia?" And they said, "We know of this condition that you speak of, and we will repair it." Pretty much a direct quote. And they used a little handheld instrument, and zoom, 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 zoom. His hernia is gone. Medically verified, right? He's like, "Why are you taking me?" "I want to know why you're taking me." And they said, "We are interested in your genetic potential to live a long time." Another pretty much direct quote. That rang a chord with me, certainly, but he's also, because his mom was elderly, his grandfather's 106, he's got aunts are in their 90s, longevity in his family. I thought, well, God, this is interesting because I'm already seeing this pattern. Human longevity has just about doubled over the last couple of hundred years. So I'm wondering if there's something going on here with them. I mean, RD6 Killer Clark had a case with a bicycle rider. He was taken on board, much healthier. Started winning all his bicycle races. People are taken on board and come back. Their IQ goes up 10, 20, 30 points. One guy I interviewed, he says, "I can't tell you, I was the back of my class, had this contact with Nordic, human-looking type beings, went to the front of his class, excelled, enjoys excellent health, never gets sick. He became a chiropractor." Uh, and was really interesting because I'm interviewing all these people and like they're nurses, they're doctors, they're teachers. And I wasn't really connecting the dots, like who's being contacted and why. It seems kind of random to me. It's all over the world. What is going on here? So I looked at my files. I'm like, I don't see any patterns here. It's evenly divided between men and women. It can happen anywhere. It's not Democrat or Republican, I can tell you that. It's not religion. I've interviewed people who are devoutly religious and people who are atheists. Well, it's not gender or gender preference or any of this. I couldn't find a darn pattern. So I'm like, God, what is going on here? If you have it in your family, you're much more likely to be contacted. But then I'm contacted by this lady from Norway. She's like, Greys came into my room. It was the scariest thing that ever happened to me. I was in bed. They came right through the wall. There was this blue light outside, and they flipped me over. They started flipping me over like a rag doll, laid me on my stomach, put this instrument to my back. I'm like, can you describe it? She's like, yeah, it had a little handle, with a cylinder, kind of like a lint remover.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is familiar. I've heard this. My mind instantly goes to this case where this lady was healed of back pain. And she says, well, they healed me of chronic back pain. I'm like, ooh, patterns, right? This is cool. And so I go through the whole experience. She said it was real brief. They filed out through the wall. She jumped up, ran to the window, and the light clicked off. And that was it. I'm like, okay, let's unpack this. Do you have a history of contact in your family? Oh, no. Have you ever seen a UFO before? Once. It was this little light up in the sky. There was 50 of us. We were watching it. I'm like, okay, well, I'm like, you sure? No, nothing, because this is rare to have a one-off like this. Like anything in your childhood, anything. And she's like, no, I can't tell you. I'm like, what's your political affiliation? What's your blood type? Because I'm gonna dig deep here, and I hate doing it. I hate prying into people's lives. It's were you on drugs?
Yeah,
this
of
sort
course,
of thing.
you got to ask that. Yeah.
And she's like, no, I don't do drugs. I'm like, okay, well, what do you do for a living? She's like, well, I used to be a graphic artist, but I'm retired, and now, she said, please don't use my name. I'm like, okay, I would never. She said, I am really well known, actually, in my community for animal and human rights activist. That rang a bell for me, because I remember John Hunter Gray. He was healed of a number of conditions. He had a huge health upgrade. And he grew 2 inches. His feet grew a couple of sizes. His scars disappeared. He started having 3 o'clock, what do you call it?
5 o'clock shadow.
5 o'clock shadow, yeah. All these things happened to him right after an encounter. I'm like, gosh, Michael Carter, another guy I interviewed, a reverend and a hands-on healer and an author, was healed of a blood clot in his leg. And he got an award from the president for his work against racism. He's a black man. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, it's people who are doing good work for humanity in some capacity, who are having these experiences or being healed even. So I rushed my file. I'm not kidding. I'm like, okay, doctor, nurse, teacher, social worker, environmentalist, right down the line, police officer, musician. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a pattern. It's not hard and fast. There was one guy I was interviewing, Don Anderson from Utah, devout Mormon, absolutely shattered his religious beliefs. And he was healed of a cold, a chest cold, and had been taken. I mean, his case is very extensive. At any rate, I asked him, what do you do for a living? Because I'm curious. No, I'm like, I bet he's doing something. He's like, I'm a bus driver. I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. And he started telling me all these kind of interesting bus driver stories. He says, but that's not my passion. I really devote my energy to this website I have called Shabala. And he says, it's all about giving psychic readings and, giving people past life information or how to elevate your psychic abilities and, this sort of thing. I'm like, well, there we go. Someone trying to help humanity. They're helping those who help others, which is exactly what they told this lady I interviewed. I'm kind of rambling here.
No, that's okay. No, it's great. It's great. That's what this is for.
Okay. I love this couple, the Shellharts, William and Rose Shellhart. They live in Hawaii, but we're traveling through Sedona on vacation. Both have a history of encounters, right? She was saved from drowning at a very young age by a mysterious figure. He had an onboard experience or a missing time experience. So they're driving through Sedona when this UFO appears in front of their car. And no matter where they go, it remains in front of their car, kind of forcing them to follow it. Then it comes around and follows them for a while, goes back in front of the car, and it seems to land in a field and disappears. So they get home, or to their hotel rather, and they're like, gosh, it's 2 hours later than it should be. And so they knew, at this point, they knew something had happened. And couldn't remember, go under hypnosis. He was not a good subject. He was too nervous. She was. And very famous European hypnotist. And she goes under a trance and easily recalls that this craft didn't disappear. It landed in the field, two half human, half hybrid. And they were bald, large dark eyes, jumpsuits, pale skin, but could have passed for human with a hat and sunglasses, she said. And we're there at the door waving them in. She says, we weren't taken on board. We were invited. I've had a number of people tell me this sort of thing, but they get out of their car, they go in, they're separated. She's like, what are you doing to my husband? She's like, we're, he's having his experience. We're working with him. And she's talking to him. She says there was nothing in there. It was almost featureless. This is one of the clues I look for. If there's all these panels and blinking lights and machines, that's rarely reported. It's almost always sparse. And she's like, where do you guys come from? And I said, well, it's not important, or it's a place you wouldn't know about yet. They were a little bit vague about that. And she said, why did you contact us? And they said, well, we are helping those who help others. She's a healer. She does herbal healing. He is a social worker. He was a postman, but now they're in Hawaii and they're very well known in their community, doing philanthropic work. One guy I interviewed, he's a full-on philanthropist. He's rich. He's like, if you use my name, I will kill you. You better not play my recording. But I will tell your story as long as you agree to these conditions. But then she asked them, why don't you just come down and help people? We've got so many problems. And they said, we can't do that. You will help those who are helping others, but it's up to you guys to solve your own problems. And I've heard this in so many different ways. There was during wartime, one guy was taken on board and I'm like, no, we can't do that. You are in a much better position to affect change than we are. It's up to you to do this. Let's say it over and over and over and over and over.
That's a very powerful message, because if you look into the world today, the message that we're receiving by a lot of people and a lot of things is just to sit down, sit back, and don't do anything. Just everything's happening that should be happening, but you don't do anything. And I so against that. I'm like, no, we need to take control and take an active role in fixing their problems. That's what I'll say. That's the best answer I can say.
They told one guy, you need to become a politician.
Really?
Which really surprised me, because this other lady I interviewed, she was pregnant with twins. One disappeared. Very odd. Probably was taken on board, because I've got a number of cases of this and gone to live with the ETs. But at any rate, she was a huge supporter of Ross Perot, very politically active. And they told her flat out, you need to stop. The political system is broken. And if you are a part of it, you are a part of the problem. And what's going to come up in the future is there's going to be, in essence, a civil war. I don't believe they use those exact terms, but confrontation or something along those lines. There was a word they used.
Civil unrest or something. I don't know. Yes.
Oh, I remember that malformation of the blood vessels is angioma. Just popped into my head.
Okay. Okay, there we go.
I knew I would remember. It just popped in my head. But yeah, they told her, if you're a part of the political system, you're a part of the problem. And one guy asked about politics, and they said, "We won't discuss politics with you," which I thought was funny because, you know, sex, politics, certain things you don't bring up at parties.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, politics is. I've gotten to the point where I think it's just a big show. We're watching a drama TV show, and these are scripted. It's scripted, and these are the actors, and everything. Like, you vote doesn't mean anything. Your vote doesn't count right now. It's all,
Yeah, I hate to
the
say that,
left and
but
the right. It's all controlled.
100%, we're selling weapons to both sides of wars. What's up with that?
Yes,
And it's
yes,
my understanding that the highest levels, that the power elite, the one percenters, Illuminati, Cabal, we all know these names, are in concert. They're working together, and
yes,
it has
100%
nothing to
they
do
are.
with nationalism. So yeah,
Nationalism doesn't exist. I think, a lot of people are afraid of this one world government, one world order, but I think it's already here. I think we just don't realize it, that we are just subsections of it already, that's already been implemented. It's here, and we haven't been privy to it, or it hasn't been released to us yet, just to let you know. Oh, just to let you know, this is already happening. Yeah, like,
yeah,
you guys are all under one world government already.
yeah. And these steps towards disclosure, because we mentioned this earlier, are a bit of a joke. It's funny. Here's a case that comes to mind. Donald Shallcross, I think from Virginia, West Virginia, thereabout, had a UFO land to him. These human-looking, I believe, ETs came out, and he's talking to them. It's a full-on conversation. And he said, "Why don't you guys just show yourselves? And why don't you disclose?" And their answer surprised me, kind of made me laugh. He said, "We already have." I'm like, you know what? That's kind of true. Because if you look at the history of UFO encounters, there's a database now, worldwide database of well over 1 million documented cases. Easy peasy. That's a lot. I did a book on schoolyard encounters where they show themselves over schools. I've got 100 cases. It's not just rural Zimbabwe Aerial Elementary School, you know,
Yes, that's the first one I thought of right there. Yeah.
but it's Westall High School, Melbourne, Australia, 1966, 1967, Opelika, Florida, Crestview Elementary. Got 100 cases. Well, it's closer to 200 now. It's a very clever way for the ETs to announce their presence in a sort of under the radar way and going to the children who are going to, of course, grow up. I wrote a book on this is so weird. This shocked me. UFOs over drive-in movie theaters.
Yeah, I saw that as well, actually. I was like, okay.
Right? That one shocked me. I couldn't believe it. I had 2 or 3 of my own cases. Thought it was a one-off, honestly, but no. Got over 100 cases. It's another publicity stunt. So my point is, there's waves of sightings every 5-10 years. Withville, Virginia, Hudson Valley, New York, Gulf Breeze, Belgium. The French wave of 1954. 1973 was a super wave across the United States. November 1957, second week in November, nothing like it has ever happened before or since. It was crazy when I looked, I'm like, there's patterns here. 1965 was another wave, 47. This is disclosure on the part of the ETs. They have done their part. Our governments, and again, I'll use that term loosely, because I think there's wonderful people in government. I do. Are truly trying to affect change and are good people. Some.
Yeah.
They are brutal. There is a very well orchestrated, heavily funded, carefully, orchestrated, I said, cover-up campaign, disinformation campaign, misinformation campaign. There's a portion of these so-called UFO researchers, I'm putting that in big air quotes, who aren't UFO researchers at all. They are government agents, flat out. Half these whistleblowers, government agents. Some are stooges, they're being led around by the nose or being sanctioned to the degree that they're allowed to talk, being forced, basically. Some of these and some of these quote contactees, oh, they took me on board and they sliced me up. And like, no, they didn't. You're a liar. I don't, there's my labs as well. People do have horrific experiences, and it's not ET. It's government agents using hypnosis and drugs and
to
psyops and
imitate or to try to replicate an ET abduction, but it's actually my labs.
so it's a mess out there. And I've interviewed some of these people who've had that. One guy's a Marine, flat up said, "Oh yeah, they hypnotized me. They gave me drugs. These guys are demons. But he told me flat out, it's like, well, listen, I was in Camp Pendleton and this happened to me and I was a Marine and they absolutely brainwashed me. And he absolutely believes that ETs are demonic. So he was my lab. Absolutely. He's like, yeah, I was part of a government experiment. But he's still having, he can't sort this out. He's heavily religious now. Religion plays all our belief systems. If you have a belief system, it's going to play a role in how you interpret what happens to you. And It's hard to escape. And my belief system collapsed. So I kind of had a little bit of an advantage. I wasn't really raised religious, but I wasn't non-religious either. So
Preston, I want to say thank you so much. You're a wealth of information, and clearly we've just scraped the surface of it. You have a ton of information and documented abductions and UFO encounters, and so I don't want to keep you too much longer. But I do have a question. Have you ever had anybody report this is going to sound strange, but I think you're okay with that. Like a cloud type UFO, like a cloud that was morphing, changing shape, and moving all around. Is that anything you've ever heard of before?
Yeah, for sure, many times. A cloud will be
many times. Okay.
Moving across the sky, keeping its shape, and sometimes it will dissipate, and there's nothing there. Sometimes a darn UFO is hiding inside of it. They can mimic stars even.
Okay. Now, the reason why I'm asking is because I had my own personal experience of seeing the best way to describe it was a plasma cloud, and it was like changing shape and moving like this above me, and it wasn't very high up above me, and it was kind of moving up and around and over, and I'm literally in this parking lot, this grocery store parking lot, staring at this thing, and the rest of the world is just going on like normal. Oblivious. And here I am in the middle of the day staring at this thing. And not only that, actually off in the distance, two triangular craft merged. I've seen that. I didn't actually see them merge into one, but they're on a course to intersect. And next thing I know, there's one just flying overhead, and I'm like trying to witness. I'm seeing both of these things happening at the same time. And the only thing I could do, I tried using my cell phone to record this. It wasn't good enough to record. I wasn't seeing anything. So I called my wife and to tell her what I'm seeing. And this whole interaction was like a 13-minute interaction, which was just crazy. But it's interesting to hear that there is more than myself seeing a cloud that's not a cloud.
Yeah, I've got a number of cases of that. Most people do describe your classic saucer, but it can be cigar-shaped, egg-shaped, V-shaped, manta ray-shaped, spherical. And these weird cloud things is absolutely a major category of what I would call a legit UFO sighting.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that was in Chihuahua, in northern Mexico, 2014 or 2014, I believe it was.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Mexico is... I like the fact that Mexico is a lot more transparent in some ways. In terms of talking about the subject, because they've had so much activity. They had a sighting in 1991 during the solar eclipse over Mexico City, which was filmed by 30 people in different locations. They had to talk about it because there was no
hiding
that one. No.
Wow. Preston, I want to say thank you so much again for spending the time here, and I'd love to have you back in the future if you are open to that.
100%. Yeah, I love this subject, so I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you. Before we jet off here, so Preston, tell everybody where they can find your books, and I think you have a website, so let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, my website's easy to find. Just type my name in. It's actually prestondennett.weebly.com. I have a YouTube channel where I put up my research. You can find my books on Amazon. I'm all over social media. I do a weekly podcast with a contactee, actually, Dolly Saffron. It's called The Light Gate, each Monday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. So we're having fun with that. Yeah, like I said, an important subject. All you skeptics out there, I'm warning you, you're going to get a wake-up call. It's coming.
One of these days, you might wake up lying on a silver table up in a UFO.
100%.
All right, Preston. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, guys, and there you have it, fellow wanderers. Another piece of the cosmic puzzle we just added to the Codex. Now, again, a huge thank you to Preston for joining us and cracking open the vault of high strangeness, and from unidentified craft, to encounters that challenged his very sense of reality. Whether you believe or you're a skeptic, or you're somewhere in between, one thing for sure is the skies are far less empty than we've been told. Now, if Preston's stories have stirred something in you, a memory, a question, or maybe an experience of your own, don't keep it to yourself. Check out Preston, go to his website, and, send him a message. And this is Rye the Codega signing off until the next mystery. And as always, my friends, keep your curiosity wandering, keep the light lit, and always find your way home.
Beneath the stars where shadows grow, the Nephilim's echoes whisper low. Bigfoot roams through the forest deep, and Dogman prowls where the brave won't sleep. Across lost history we wonder why, seeking the truth that time tried to hide. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies, aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks, in the void of secrets a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies, aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks, in the void of secrets a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Legends rise from the Earth's deep core, a lost legacy we can't ignore. With every step, the veil grows thin, revealing worlds where the strange begins. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back.